Hey there. So, you're getting ready for your A1 English exam? You've come to the right place. We're going to master the simple present tense today. It's one of the most important building blocks of English. And trust me, getting this right is a huge step toward passing your exam. So, let's get started. First, let me ask you something. What do you do every single day? Think about it. You wake up, you eat breakfast, maybe you go to school or work. Well, these daily routines, that's exactly what the simple present tense is all about. See, you're already living it. Now we're just going to learn how to say it correctly in English. So here's our game plan. First up, we'll break down what the present simple actually is. Then, and this is super important, we'll look at when you're going to use it on your exam. After that, we'll get into building sentences, the positives, the negatives, and the questions. And to wrap it all up, we'll do a super quick final review of the key rules you've got to remember. All right, let's dive into section 1. What is the present simple? Before we can start making sentences and everything, we really need to get a grip on the basic idea behind this tense. Think of it as the foundation for everything else we're about to cover. Okay, so here's the main idea, and it's a little surprising. The simple present usually isn't for things happening right this second. Nope. Instead, we use it for things that are regular, true, or normal. So we're talking about your routines, your habits, and just simple facts. Every tense in English has its own special structure, its own form. It's kind of like a recipe for building a sentence. And for the simple present, the good news is that recipe is actually really, really straightforward. And here it is, that simple formula. First, you've got the subject. That's just the person or thing doing the action, like I, you, or the cat. Then comes the verb. That's the action word, like eat or run. And finally, you have the object, the thing getting the action. So, for example, I, that's the subject. Eat, that's the verb. Breakfast, that's the object. See? Easy. Okay, on to section 2. Now, this is absolutely key for your exam. Let's look at the specific situations where you need to use the simple present. If you can learn to spot these situations, you'll know exactly what to do when you see them on your test. So for that exam, you want to be on the lookout for 4 key signals. We use the simple present for number 1, regular actions, like a bus schedule. 2, facts, like water is wet. 3, habits, like your own daily routine. And 4, things that are generally or always true. Let's check out an example for each of these. Here's a perfect example of a regular, scheduled action. Did you notice the keywords there? Every hour. When you see words like every day, always, sometimes, or often in an exam question, that is a huge clue that you probably need to use the simple present. Now this one, well, it's just a fact. It's always true, right? It was true yesterday, it's true today, and it'll be true tomorrow. For any kind of scientific fact or general truth just like this, we always use the simple present. And here we go, a personal habit or a daily routine. This is how you'll talk about your own life and your schedule. And look, there it is again, that little signal phrase, every day. And our last example, we use it for situations that are just generally true. Maybe they aren't speaking English at this very second, but it's a normal, true part of their job. It describes a state or a normal condition, you could say. Moving on to section 3, building a sentence. We know when to use it, so now let's really focus on how to build it the right way. And I want you to pay close attention here because we're about to cover what is probably the single most important rule for your A1 exam. Okay, listen up because this is the big one. For I, you, we, and they, the verb is simple. Speak, eat, learn. No changes. But for the third person, he, she, or it, you must add an S to the verb. It's not he speak, it is he speaks. This is a classic exam question, so whatever you do, do not forget it. All right, just a quick spelling rule for you. If a verb ends in a consonant and then a Y, like the word study, you have to drop the Y and add IES, so it becomes she studies. But if it ends in a vowel plus Y, like play, you just add an S. Simple as that. He plays. And here's one more little spelling rule for he, she, and it. If a verb ends in one of these sounds, like o, ch, or sha, we actually add ES. This just helps make the word way easier to say. So, for example, go becomes goes, and watch becomes watches. Awesome. You've totally got the positive sentence down.
So now let's switch it up and learn how to make negatives in questions. It's actually easier than we think. We just need to bring in a little helper word. Okay, so to make this sentence negative, we add our helper word, doesn't. But wait, look closely at what happens to the verb speaks. It changes back to speak. The S is gone. Why? Because our helper word doesn't already has the S in it, so the main verb can just relax and go back to its simple form. This is a super important rule to remember. So the formula here is pretty simple. For I, you, we, they, you're going to use don't. And for he, she, it, you use doesn't. And for both of them, the verb that comes next is always the simple base form. No S's in sight. And the rule for questions is very, very similar. We take our helper word, this time it's does, and we pop it right at the beginning of the sentence. And just like with the negatives, check out what happens to speaks. The S vanishes again, because the helper word does is doing all the heavy lifting. And here's the structure for your questions, nice and clear. You start with do for I, you, we, they, and you start with does for he, she, it. Then comes your subject, and finally, the simple base verb. Do you need? Does she need? Perfect. Okay, we have covered a lot, so let's take a second to lock it all in. This is your final review. If you forget everything else, please remember these 3 golden rules for your exam. All right, let's do a rapid-fire review. Rule 1, always add S to the verb for he, she, and it in positive sentences. Always. Rule 2, to make something negative, use don't or doesn't right before the base verb. And Rule 3, to ask a question, you just start the sentence with do or does. That's it. If you can master these 3 rules, you are going to do great. So let's try it out right now. Using everything you just learned, what is one fact that you can now say in English? It can be about you, about your family, about anything in the world. Go ahead, try to say it out loud. Seriously, practicing is the absolute best way to prepare. You've got this. Good luck with your exam.